From the WatchBox studios, this is On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy.
Good morning. Welcome to On Point on WatchBox. It's always a pleasure to bring you the show, and tonight on the radio show we've got a Citizens Town Hall. I want you to take the opportunity to tune in and hear what people, regular folks, think about the election. Today, here on Point on Watch, the TV show The Youth Vote in 2012. President Obama, now more than ever, cannot sit comfortably. Mitt Romney now holds about a 40% hold on the youth vote in America. Cause for alarm for the Democratic incumbent and a milestone for his Republican opponent. Jay-Z Analytics reports more people ages 18 to 29 are favoring the conservative podium. Many are college educated, many recently graduated but unemployed. The frustration of about 1.5 million unemployed BA graduates is rising, pushing them away from President Obama and toward Mitt Romney. 4 years ago, the situation was reversed. The president's 2008 campaign will be remembered not only because of his skin color, but also because of his massive appeal to young adults. The hope posters, the change we can believe in slogan. In fact, 66% of young adults picked President Obama over John McCain, but that was 4 years ago. So today, as we look at what we're looking at, Brian, we really have to talk about what are the prospects of that staying the same. I'm seated with Brian McConchie, anchor here at WatchBox News, and Brian, it's always a delight. We have shared this political season. It's been a historic political season.
It has, and every week we've chosen a different topic to talk about, and this is this week. And we've actually touched on this issue several times over the last few weeks because we do know it's very critical. We do know where all the votes, a good portion of the votes came from 4 years ago, and there is that giant question mark now. Are they going to come there from that same place yet again?
That's
and we're
right.
going to find out in a little over a week, but that question's still there.
Well, Amanda Loveday from South Carolina Democratic Party is here with us, and we thank you for being here. And Wes Donahue with Donahue Direct. Thank you both for being here. As Brian and I look at what we've got going on with the young adult voting pattern, are you alarmed, Amanda, as a Democratic operative of sort? Are you alarmed?
It's no secret that 2012 is not 2008. We're not going to most likely see the turnout that we saw in 2008. The re-election campaign is not the same as a first-time election campaign. Everyone who voted for Barack Obama in 2008 has voted for the first African-American president the first time they'll do it, and it doesn't happen again. So the excitement obviously is going to be dialed down a little bit in any re-election campaign. What's most important for young people to realize is that do they want to go to a candidate who has made these grand promises without showing them how they're going to do it, where the money's coming from, and even if he can do it, or do you want to go to a candidate who has gradually gotten the economy back to where it needs to be? We are better off than we were 4 years ago.
You know, Brian, as Amanda speaks, I'm reminded of the fact that a number of people are making that decision about whether they stay the course or change because the economy is really a drag on a number of people's lives. And, you know, that's one of those things that I don't guess anybody could have predicted at that particular time in 2008 when all the optimism was so high.
Here we look at it, just our own state. We have one of the higher unemployment rates in the country, and unemployment nationally still isn't where we want it to be.
Absolutely.
Yes, there's been some improvement, but the numbers aren't where I think most people want to, especially the folks that aren't working right now. They're the ones that have been sitting there just waiting for that phone to ring. It's not happening.
Speaking of waiting, Wes is waiting to jump in.
Yeah, he wants to jump in. He wants to talk.
Maybe she talks about these grand promises. This is a president that came in with hope and change. I mean, come on, there is no hope and change for these kids coming right out of college. You know, we're just a few blocks from the University of South Carolina. You don't see what you saw last time around. You don't see kids with the T-shirts, the posters in their dorm windows, or hanging out on the streets with signs. You don't see it. That's because these college kids are freaked out. They just spent their lives going through school. They just spent all this money going through college and all this time. They're probably sitting there thinking, man, I should have just gotten drunk for the last 4 years instead of studying because now I'm going to have to move back in with mommy and daddy anyway. I mean, it's obvious why the college kids in that age isn't with Obama this time.
Let me ask you this, Wes, because college students are smart and they recognize that we had such a severe crash. I've never, well, certainly in my lifetime, have not seen anything like we're still experiencing now with so many of the people that we know who are unemployed, so many businesses that are closing. And I think, though, that a number of people do understand that the circumstances warrant a lot more attention, perhaps, than predictors thought in 2008.
Now listen, they are smart, and they're smart enough to realize this isn't a president that can get the economy changed around that immediately, but they can look long term and see his answers has been more spending, bigger government, and this is a generation that's going to have to pay off this debt at some point. And they're freaked out, not just about the next 5, 6, 10 years, but about the next 30 and 40 years.
Here, really quickly, I'm sorry, I just have
go
to
right ahead.
jump in really quickly and tell you that there are a couple of things that are really important to remember about President Obama. First of all, we're in the 31st month that we've had job growth in the United States.
That's exactly where I was going, because there are a number of
31
milestones.
Yeah, absolutely. 31 months of consecutive job growth. We're at
31 months.
31 months. We're at 13 consecutive quarters of the GDP going up. And granted, yeah, it's not going up by 10%, 20%, but it's going up gradually. You know, when we got Steve Spurrier to USC, we didn't expect to win a national championship the second year he was here. It has to get better gradually. And Brian brought up a good point about the unemployment. Our unemployment is above 9%. It's a little higher than 7% nationally. All of our neighbors, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, are all lower than us. So we cannot blame President Obama for the unemployment in South Carolina. That's all Nikki Haley.
The impatience that we've talked about before, that people seem to feel in wanting change immediately. A number of people are a bit impatient. As you talk to people,
especially those not working. Yeah.
As you talk to people and you're out and about, do you find a lot of people discouraged?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there are some that aren't so discouraged. They like the track that things are going, but there is an equal amount, and maybe if not even more, that are rumbling a little louder about not being so happy right now about the way things are, whether it's here in our state or our neighbors or all across the country. And have real fears going forward about what is this going to mean for my retirement or
it's a scary
things
time.
of that nation. Yeah.
It's a scary time. That's why the argument that comes from the Democratic Party is because it is so scary and because we are having successes, why should we change now?
Absolutely. Why should we go to someone who hasn't really given us a plan of how he expects to get more jobs, how he plans to get the debt down or to raise the GDP? We are gradually getting better, and it's going to take time. We had a horrible crash 4 years ago, and we're not going to be able to turn it around immediately.
We got to go to break, but Wes, you'll have the first word as soon as we come back. Recently, President Obama said because this is not your normal recession, things are moving a bit slower. So should folks be more patient? We will continue this conversation. We will come back, and Wes Donahue will have the first word. Stay with us.
You're watching On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own WatchBox.
Brian and I are so glad that you joined us for this week on
we
Point with WatchBox. We're talking about the youth vote in 2012, and by youth vote we're talking 18 to 29. That's that young adult voting population that seemed to be so fired up in 2008.
They really came out 4 years ago. We talked about it in the previous segment. The T-shirts, the posters, in dorm room windows,
Excitement.
people on street corners with signs, but yeah, we're not seeing it as much anymore. We were talking about the economy before we went to break, and Wes Donahue was about to jump out of his coat over there to get a word in.
It just drives me crazy because, you know, the economy is getting better nationally. That's because of Obama, but it's getting worse in South Carolina. That's because of Nikki Haley. I mean, this whole dependence and everything is based on government. That's them. That's what they believe, and that's what college kids are all freaked out about. They know it's not the president, it's not the governor, it's the workforce, and all government needs to do is get out of the way. She talks about jobs are going up. Let me tell you what else is going up besides the economy: debt. Spending. This president is trying to spend our way to prosperity, and college kids are smart enough to know that ain't going to work. Government can't get us out of this. Get government out of the way, and the college kids will get us out of this.
Amanda, I have heard an argument in the past couple of days about dueling ideologies and philosophies behind each of the candidates, and a number of women are scared to death that if the conservative party gets in, that a number of women's rights will be significantly reduced, and many women are really, really afraid.
It's interesting you say that, because as I was listening to Wes talk about the regulation to government, and we want more government, they want less government, everything other than my body and the rules that—
Except for life, human beings.
The things that have to do with me. So he wants less government when it comes to taxes. He wants more government telling me what I need to do in my life. And so I think that there are a lot of women out there, as you can see. Obama is definitely getting the women votes because Mitt Romney has not only said two different things. He was for Roe v. Wade. He was against Roe v. Wade. He was for the Lilly Ledbetter Act. He was against the Lilly Ledbetter Act. And there are a lot of women's issues out there today that they have no idea what the type of Mitt Romney they're going to get if he becomes president, but you know for certain the type of Obama you're going to get.
Recently, Brian, I saw a soundbite from 4 years ago where Mitt Romney was saying if he had the opportunity to overturn Roe v. Wade that he would, That's a little bit frightening, the ladies.
I would imagine it would be. Yes, yes, it would be. Wes wants to talk. So
But
here we
that's
go.
just-
He's been waiting.
It's crazy talk to say just because we want to protect life that we're against women. That is absolutely insane. Nobody's against women's rights. We simply want to make sure that babies have a chance to be born before y'all go out and kill them. And by y'all, I mean liberals and Democrats and not women. Okay, that's it. You can't say just because we want to protect life that we are anti-women. It's not a fair assessment at all.
So do you believe in abortions if it has to do with incest or the life of the mother or?
Personally, I have a hard time deciding that because my opinion on that has changed because it's such an emotional issue. I personally want to say no, but when you talk to a raped lady, it's hard to say that. Okay, it very is. I'm not one of those guys that believes I know all. I'm not God. What I do know is that when we can protect babies, we should.
But it's not up to you. If it's a decision that I want to make with my family or it's a decision another woman wants to make with her family, it's not up to you.
What's it matter?
Why should you be in my life, governmenting and regulating my life, when you keep telling me to get the government out of every other part of my life?
Because it is life. And because if you're not born and you don't have life, then you don't have any rights at all, Amanda. Because that is the basis of everything.
If you're not out there giving them a baseline to live, you're not helping them get a job, you're not helping them get food on the table, you're not helping them make sure that their family is successful.
Who's not helping them? Who's not?
What about the criminalization of abortion? If Roe v. Wade is turned over, then that means if a woman terminates a pregnancy, it would be murder. It really makes me shake in my shoes to think that that really could happen and that someone could be charged with murder for termination in the first trimester.
Gloria Allred said yesterday on television that before Roe v. Wade actually was put into law, that she got off the street abortion, almost died. I mean, why should we make women go into those horrible situations when it can be avoided?
I guess I'm wondering, Wes, can you see how with a law that
Absolutely.
has been in effect and pretty much is institutionalized in our society, the overturning of it would just wreak havoc, not just in that environment, but in so many environments on the periphery?
Absolutely, I can see it. It's a very emotional issue. I'm not blind or deaf to this issue, but here's what I know, that we're still talking about life. And in the grand scheme of things, that's all that. What matters more?
But there are other women's issues other than abortion, right? So when you say women's issues, that's not the only thing that we talk about. We talk about making sure that women are paid the same as men in the workplace. And Mitt Romney tells a story about how he had a binder full of women, but that's not even the story that I thought was the most interesting. The most interesting was when he said he had a woman staffer that he let go home at 5 o'clock to make sure dinner was cooked for her family. I mean, that's insane. I mean, the fact that women have to go home at 5 o'clock to make sure there's dinner on the table, absolutely. I think that if women can do that, that's wonderful. But you don't have, that's not a woman's life anymore. If we elect Mitt Romney, we're going back to the social issues of the 1950s.
And you'll have the last word.
I honestly don't know what to say to that. I mean, to say now that women, there's something wrong with Republicans believing that women should be able to go home and cook dinner and take care of their kids. Jesus, what the heck has a Democratic Party come to? What has it come to? I'm flabbergasted. No one ever said it was a requirement, but this is a man who let a woman go home and cook.
He let her go home and cook dinner for her husband.
Because she obviously needed to. She needed to go home.
The operative word, Wes, is let.
Let, yeah. If she needed to go home, this was a boss that was kind enough to let this woman off from work, and now he's being criticized. Somehow, because of his kindness, he hates women. This is insane, y'all.
Wes Donahue and Amanda Loveday. This has been a very riveting discussion, and
it's going to continue.
Now it's going to continue, and we presented two different perspectives. You guys were absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much, and good luck in your efforts. But Jacqueline Franz, who's coming forward with Antoine Seawright, will also represent that youth segment. It'll be interesting to see what they have to say. I wonder if they'll mix it up like these two did.
They might.
You guys stay tuned.
You're watching On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own WatchBox.
Welcome back to On Point on WatchBox. Brian and I are talking about the youth vote in 2012. And it's interesting because while President Obama seems to have about 60% of the young adult vote that's going his way, looks like about 40%, more than last time.
Yeah, remember back in 2008 just how much the younger set was fired up about this. Because it was historic. It was a historic time. And I think some of that may have trailed off. We don't see the same type of, I don't know if hysteria is the word, but it really was like that, like a rock star status. We talked about that earlier with T-shirts and posters and signs and things of that nature. And we got a little bit off topic in the last segment, so we're going to bring it back in now and welcome in two more people to our panel.
Yes, Jacqueline Francis is with us, and
Yes.
she is with College Republicans at the University of South Carolina. Antoine Seawright is the Deputy Director of the South Carolina Democratic Caucus. Both of them fit the demographics,
they
so
do.
we thought we would start by asking you guys. You heard them mixing it up out here a moment
Yes.
ago, and the stakes are pretty high. Why are the stakes so high, Jacqueline?
Well, jobs. College students, they're scared. They went to school for the past 4 years. I know I'm a senior at USC, and I'm scared. I hope that I have a job when I graduate, and I know that my friends that are 2 years older than me, most of them have to move back home to be with their parents. 18 to 24-year-olds have to go back home, or else they're struggling because they need to find a job.
I hear that a lot. You?
Yeah, yeah, we do.
I hear it too.
Well, Cynthia, I agree with her about the jobs part, but I think it's a little more to it than jobs. You think about student loan debt, that's important. You think about health care, that's important for a college student. You know, those are things that are important too. You think about education as a whole. For instance, the president makes sure that, you know, there's extra money for Pell Grants for students who are going to college, for first generation college students like myself. You know, when I graduated college, I had to come off my parents' health insurance. Thanks to the president's Healthcare Affordable Care Act, you know, now college students can stay on their parents' health insurance until the age of 26. I think that's important. The other perspective is when we talk about jobs, because I hear my Republican friends talk about, you know, this economy is so bad and so forth, but we have to remember where we've come from in this economy. Amanda stated 31 consecutive months of jobs added to the economy. And you think about where we were in 2004 and 2008 and where we are now, of course we're better off than we are 4 more years. And I don't think any college student can debate the fact that one way or the other.
At the same time,
Alex Shriver, the chairman of the College Republican National Committee, he said Obama promised 3 things. He promised to lower the deficit, he promised to make college more affordable, and he promised to keep the unemployment rate under 8%. Those 3 things he has not done. The past 4 years, Obama back in 08 was a charismatic new face. Young people loved him, but the past 4 years he has not proven to be that candidate.
You know, I don't know what numbers you saw, but recently, like after the second debate, the unemployment numbers were 7.1%. I think that's lower than 8%. That's one thing. He promised several things. He promised that he would end the war in Iraq. Done. He promised us that he would give us affordable health care for everyone, and that students could stay on the college, their parents' insurance until the age of 26. That was done. You know, he promised that the economy would slowly turn around. It's done. 31 consecutive months of job improvement and jobs added to the economy. You know, he did make those promises, and unless I'm crazy or don't know something that you don't know, I think he's delivered.
Well, I think that the youth at South Carolina, and I know many other colleges and around the nation, are motivated to help Mitt Romney. I know Lauren Luxemburg, the chairman of College Republicans here at USC, she's down there with 20 other college Republicans in Florida campaigning for Mitt Romney, and I think that, you know, it's important for you to get involved as a youth, and I'm glad that you're involved. And I think that having young people in politics is important because we are the future and we want the best for our children as well.
Here's another perspective I think it's important for your listeners to understand, Cynthia. The president talked about student loan debt. That's important for every college student because 6 months after you graduate, you have to start back paying loans. He put a cap on interest rate. He made that promise and he delivered. And yes, young people are excited across the country. I'm involved, many of my friends involved across this country, and I think the president will capture the youth vote. It may not be in large numbers like it was in 2008, but I think it'll be enough to do what he needs to do for his re-election bid.
quick final comment, Jacqueline.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly.
But I just hope that people educate themselves. That's the most important. And I hope that, you know, you look at the facts and you don't believe everything you hear.
And I believe you probably would say the same thing.
Absolutely. It's important to be educated on the issues.
Good segment. You guys stay tuned. We're going to, when we come back, we're going to have Jim Felder from the South Carolina Voter Education Project joined by Mr. McLawhorn, J.T. McLawhorn from the Columbia Urban League. This will be an interesting segment. You guys stay tuned. Thank you guys very much. Very interesting stuff.
You're watching On Point on WatchBox with Cynthia Hardy on Columbia's own WatchBox.
Welcome back to OnPoint on Watch Fox. Brian and I are talking about the youth vote in 2012.
Yeah, good discussion so far.
And it occurs to me that one of the big issues in terms of the youth vote is how college students will be able to vote. There seems to be a lot of confusion out there in terms of whether or not they need some additional forms of
folks
identification.
from all over the country that are here in Columbia, from not only from South Carolina, so they got some different ways to absentee voting, or whether they've got known residents here. So we'll clear those up hopefully with Mr. Felder.
We will. Jim Felder is the expert in that area with the South Carolina Voter Education Project. Mr. McLaughlin, J.T. McLaughlin, has worked for a long time with disenfranchised communities across the state of South Carolina. We welcome each of you. And Mr. McLaughlin, I know you have a big event that's coming up on Tuesday, and we want to talk about that before we get out of here too, because that's always a very exciting and beneficial event in our community. Mr. Felder, you heard the other political operatives on the show today. Very interesting discussion, which leads Brian and I to the question, is there anything different about the way young voters will vote, particularly college students?
I don't think so. They realize what's at stake here. Now, of course, young folk are in a hurry. They want things instantly. So this recession we've been in, they don't like that because they don't see the turnaround immediately. But you can't turn a aircraft carrier around on a dime. So President Obama is doing what he said he would do. On the voting side of things, young folk are still excited about it. May not be as high enthusiasm as it was first time around. But as I travel the state, I do see a lot of enthusiasm of young folk. The voter registration season is over, as you know. Yeah. As of August 31st, 1.9 million registered voters in South Carolina. Of that number, 900,000 African American registered voters. The numbers are high. Early voting, or as the people say, absentee vote balloting, is going well. Richland County has registered 27,000 early voters already. Statewide, it's over 300,000, and that's higher than it was 4 years ago.
If I'm a college student and I want to go vote, is there anything different between voting November 6th and voting the last time they voted?
Nothing at all.
And that word needs to get out. And if you'll come on the radio show in some form this evening, we want to make sure that that word gets out to people, because Brian, as you know, because of all this talk of voter ID, and it doesn't take effect until 2013, but so many people don't know that it doesn't take effect.
Well, they heard it was upheld by that federal panel of judges. So,
and they wrote a 38-page opinion, but it doesn't change anything till 2013, and even then it really does not do that much changing.
Mr. McLaughlin, how important is the work that Mr. Felder and his team are doing? How important is that?
It's very important because well, we do understand that if you don't vote, you don't have any power at all. And I think a lot of times people get apathy. They think, well, it's not going to make a difference. We got to keep on keeping on. I mean, you got to realize that change doesn't come quickly. It's a long-term process, and we got to be engaged throughout the long term. And I think that this is a very critical election for us. This is our future at stake. We've been involved with several wars that have really pulled all the resources out of our economy. Yeah. And so now we're making the transition, and it's important. You know, war is very expensive. People don't understand that. Yeah. I mean, war is extremely expensive. And so when the president and the Congress all agree that we're going to leave Afghanistan, and we're out of Iraq, I think it sends a real positive message that we're going to have resources that we can reinvest into our economy. And it's time that we stop looking outside of this country and bring resources back to this country, you know.
The message that you're taking to other parts of the state in terms of how they can vote and all that kind of stuff, are people receptive to it?
Very receptive. This past week there were 2 huge meetings in Columbia. The Baptist Gethsemane Association had a meeting on Thursday night at Bethlehem, North Columbia. Hundreds of people were there. On Saturday, the AME Church brought all the AME ministers into Columbia for a meeting, and that's the message I'm giving to them, what needs to be done, what has been done, and they're excited about it.
Mr. McLaughlin, as the work that you do kind of supports what Mr. Felder is doing.
Yeah. You know, we're just like he is. We're a nonpartisan organization. You know, our focus is not to endorse political candidates. Our focus is to encourage people to exercise their fundamental right, and that is the right to vote, and understand that it's a long-term process and that you got to have accountability. You must understand the issues, and there's a lot of misinformation out here. I mean, if voting wasn't that important, we would not have the misinformation that we see around the country today. And anyone think that your vote doesn't count, look at all this misinformation, all the monies that's been spent to confuse people, to manipulate people. I'm telling you, they're doing it because they understand the power of the vote.
You got a dinner coming up on Tuesday.
Tuesday is our annual fund campaign and equal opportunity dinner. The focus is on healthy communities, promote economic empowerment. And one of the things we talk about when we talk about healthy communities, we're looking beyond what we call the quality of life index that really looks at things like your education system, your employment system, the arts, and your infrastructures like transportation and so forth. We're talking about we must look at this whole thing called civility. Are people respected in a community? And I think there got to be more emphasis, because I think what's very evident through this political campaign is the divisiveness, the lack of respect for people, and we got to have civility if we're going to have healthy communities.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Felder, you get the last word.
Just want to say JT McLaughlin has been one of the longest serving Urban League directors in the country.
And he does
the Urban League
job.
came to Columbia at the same time the Voter Education Project did in 1967. So I've followed them all these years. So I know the good work that they do.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's it for this edition of On Point on Watch Fox. You guys go to that Urban League dinner. It's a great event.
Yeah.
You guys, please send your comments and suggestions to onpointwithcynthia.com, and remember to join us next week. When you're informed, you're empowered. Once empowered, you're on point. We'll see you next week.